If you need help with any personal or family issue, reach out to Grace Springs on 0779 206677 or WhatsApp on 0746 576 000.
Hello and welcome to Grace Springs Family Network in collaboration with Focus on the Family. Grace Springs Family Network is redeeming a nation one family at a time, and they're doing that through offering counseling services in the areas of marriage. So if you're a married couple and you need support, Grace Springs Family Network is here for you. For your parenting journey, we know that parenting can be very, very daunting. Come to Grace Springs Family Network for support in that area. Also, if you are a single person, you need support with your mental health or premarital counseling, any kind of counseling service you will find at Grace Springs Family Network. On the show today, we are going to be talking about parenting teenagers. In particular, we're going to be discussing the discipline aspect of teenagers. And joining me to have that conversation is someone I fondly know as Auntie Priscilla. She's called Priscilla Serukka. She is an administrator, passionate about corporate governance. She is currently the managing director of KAIROS Consult Ltd. It's a consulting firm which specializes in corporate governance. She is a mother and a wife of 36 years. She's a mother to 4 boys, and together they have 2 daughters in love and 2 granddaughters, as well as so many other spiritual daughters and women that she has mentored and brought up to be wonderful, influential women in our nation today. So welcome aboard. Welcome, Auntie Priscilla.
Thank you so much.
It's good to have you here.
Nice to be here. Yeah. And when I saw it's you interviewing me, I said, well,
small world. A very small world. But I'm really happy to be using my skill and my talent to be having these very necessary conversations,
yes.
You know. So we are going to be having a chat about parenting teenagers. And the reason I feel like this conversation is very important is because there's a shift in how we parent our children from age 1 to 10. Once they get into the 11, 12, 13, we need to switch how we are parenting our children. Yeah, and yet many parents stay locked in how they were parenting their children 1 to 10 years. But maybe we could start from how you believe parenting teenagers or the discipline of teenagers evolves from that younger phase. What are some of the things that change and that parents need to look out for?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Rachel.
Yeah.
Thinking through it, I realized that to parent teenagers successfully, you needed to have done it well from the 0 to 10 years period. It makes everything easier. 0 to 10, you are teaching them, you are in a way controlling them.
That's true.
And telling them what to do and what not to do, teaching them what is right, what is not right, instilling values, good values into them.
Yeah.
But now when they phase into the preteen, 10, 11, 12, 13. You need to start adjusting from the external rules and controls to having them think through and make also some choices.
Yes.
And be responsible for some actions. So the change then when they become teenagers from 13 to 19, you are giving them responsibilities.
Yes.
You are helping them make choices, responsible choices. You are mentoring them.
Yes.
And you are leaving them to feel they are responsible. It's not easy, especially for mothers. And even listening to the other clip.
Yes.
Mothers, we are nurturers.
True.
Mothers, we are natural protectors.
Yeah.
This child is still your baby.
For sure.
And looking back also from what I had in the clip, even between me and my husband, my husband would feel like, when he gets in trouble, he will learn.
He will learn, yes.
And me, I'm thinking, he could avoid that pain and the trouble.
Why don't we tell him what to do?
And guide him in the right way. So that is the lock-in we get. We are still nurturing. We are thinking we are nurturing. And you're still thinking you have is still a baby. And on the other hand, the child feels they want control.
Yes.
While you're still trying to hold on to the reins. The child wants more and more control. and you are not seeing things in the right perspective. The parent you're protecting, he wants control.
And I think that brings in the aspect of communicating, because like you've said, with the 0 to about 10, 11, we are telling them what to do, and they are responding with obedience or disobedience, depending on the scenario, and then maybe we execute consequences, or there's some form of discipline that is administered. How then would you advise parents to switch their communication technique when you're talking to someone who feels like, but I know what to do, and yet they don't quite know what to do? You're still guiding them.
The area of communication is very important. And not just talking down to them, you know, sometimes that's what we do. But being able to listen, asking open-ended questions. Okay, what do you think about this? Okay, how are you going to navigate through this? Without you telling them you should do this. Try to listen to them. And that's where the challenge sometimes comes. Some of us, I think, also from personality, we are not good listeners, and also not to react. Some of the things they may say may feel shocking to you. How dare you?
How can you talk to me like that?
It is not Christian. We've raised you up in this way. So how to calmly listen through and say, okay, and then be able to ask some clarifying questions. Okay, I didn't quite get you here when you said this and the other. And then, of course, not being judgmental. Sometimes even mothers, we are quick to judge. Whether we are born judges, I don't know. But to be able to instead of using you, when you do this, you always do this, you're always doing the other. But instead being able to train ourselves to say, okay, I feel a little nervous when you say this and the other. I feel upset when you say we have not done this and the other for you. So trying not to judge, but to use the I statements a bit more. And your feelings, recognizing their feelings also and emotions. And also, it's good to be clear when communicating the boundaries and the expectations. I always remember a story one time with one of my son. So we were going on a function with my husband, and then he told me there's a certain textbook he wanted to go and buy. So I told him, okay, where are you going to buy it? How much is it? And so on and so forth. I said, okay, when you go, immediately come back. So I give him the money for the taxi. I give him the money for the book. Now, I think he saw an opportunity.
Naturally.
He knew we are going to a function. Probably we are going to come back late. Now, when we went to this function, we sort of got bored with it and decided to come back early.
Oh my.
So I get home, I ask, where is so-and-so? He's not here.
He's not yet back.
He went, from that time he's not. So I start calling him. He had a phone on him. I call, he doesn't pick. I call again, he's not picking. I keep insisting calling. Well, my husband is telling me, just leave him.
We'll come back. And
and he refused even to pick the phone. So I sent him a message, you better pick this phone. Anyway, of course now he knows things are bad, and I'm also saying things are bad. He went to buy a book at 3 p.m. It's 8 p.m.
and
he's nowhere to be seen. Anyway, he eventually realizes trouble. And then he calls me and says, you know, I'm in a taxi, there's traffic. I said, no, where's that traffic? We didn't find any traffic along. And you couldn't be in traffic since 3 p.m. Anyway, he eventually comes home, and I'm in a rage. Which is wrong. You don't correct or discipline when you're in a rage. And because he's telling me stories and lying, the rage my temperatures are going higher and higher. Anyway, I did the undoable. You can't imagine.
What did you do?
I got a stick.
Oh my gosh, how old was he at this point?
15 years. Today, whenever I look back, I say honestly.
What were you thinking?
I was even lucky he could have beaten me. I could have got him into it, but I took off the phone. I said, now this phone, that's it. If you're using this phone to tell lies and tell stories,
no
then
more phone.
Away. Then I get my stick. I tell him to lie down. I am in a rage. I actually meted this stick. Up to this day, I wonder what could have gone into my head. But when he tells me and when I got to know where he was, I was so scared. I think it was out of fear. Is he hanging out with these young youth in Garden City and doing all kinds of things? But still, I was not justified.
You were not justified,
Anyway, the following day, I think the young man was equally scared as I was scared.
He must have been.
He had seen me within such a range.
Yes.
So the following day, he writes to me a note. Mommy, I'm really so sorry. I'll not do it again. But now I had to also apologize and say, I'm really so sorry.
For the way I reacted.
I was annoyed, but I shouldn't have reacted like that. There was no point in getting a stick at your age and so on and so forth. I'm sorry. But let's learn a few lessons from this experience. It
was a learning curve for both of you.
It was a really learning curve, and it has never gotten out of my head whenever I remember what were you up to. But disciplining teenagers is not easy because they are always trying to push the boundaries.
For sure.
So he had listened. They're going to be away. I can do this and the other and the other. And possibly he had also inflated the price of the book so he can get some money and hang out with friends. And the opportunity had worked out so well, they will come back late. So by the time we come back,
he's not yet
he would have come back, wouldn't have known. The book wasn't the main issue. So, and I found they are all different. We have 4 boys, but they all with a different
temperament.
Some of them are more open and will converse. They'll tell you what they want to do and you discuss. Others, you have to keep digging out. Others are trying to bend everything. Every good boundary you're trying to give them, they are trying to bend it to their advantage. So I've learned also that in parenting teenagers, you need to get to understand each child.
That's true.
Some are too strong-willed. And if you didn't manage to control that will when they were between the 0 to 10 years space, it becomes even more challenging. So some are too strong-willed. Some you can easily break their wills because they are not too strong-willed.
They are rule followers.
And so what we do in the 0 to 10 years is important. They are learning also from you and about you, how you do your decisions. You may say, you know, there's that urge, do as I say, not as I do. But they are learning from what you do.
That's true.
If you are harsh and shouting at everyone in the house, shouting at them, at the workers, they are picking it up from you.
And they are thinking it's okay.
You're shouting to your spouse, they are picking it up from you. So parenting is one of those journeys that we tend to learn sometimes in retrospect. And especially teenagers, we rarely talk about parenting teenagers.
I know. I don't know why. I think maybe because the 1 to 10 is like hectic and is more hard work driven, where you're changing diapers, you're washing clothes, you're taking kids to school. Like it's more in work intensive. And yet with teenagers, you need more conversations. There's a dynamic between how do I balance respect and authority. You know, how do I maintain that balance? And there's a lot of talking and understanding who your child is. I'm curious to know, with like your son, how would you have done it? How would you have disciplined him in a better way, in a more positive way?
Okay, I think what I should have done is we should have talked the following day.
You were very angry.
I was very angry. I could have taken away the phone. I said, what you've done is bad. And I'm not happy about it. Let's talk tomorrow. Then it would have given me time to calm down, think through about the kind of conversations and what we want to do. I think it would have been, I would have better control.
That's true.
I lost control.
You really did.
I lost control. Really but did. Then I think the other thing we sometimes forget is that even these teenagers need respect from us.
That's true.
And we can be harsh. We feel as parents we have a right to be harsh. I'm not too sure why, but we sometimes think it. And even if we are harsh, it's okay, we can get away with it. But this respect is so important to them. I think he felt ashamed even before his brothers. Yes, I did it in the room, but they had the commotion around it.
Yes.
So the respect about their feelings, respect about their emotions, respect about what they think they need to do. We think we know what they should be doing, and that's it. But I think also the dilemma we have in my generation is from the way we were raised up.
That's true. and merging that with how your kids are being raised in their generation.
The society today is different.
When
we were raised up, the parent says A, B, C.
And that's
A, B, C is not A, C, D, B.
No.
And you don't even ask questions.
No.
But today, they'll ask you why. Why can't I do this? Everyone else is doing it.
Yes.
My friends are doing it, but my friends are going to be there.
What
do I tell them? That I can't come, that I have to leave by 7 p.m. and be home? So the environment has changed.
That's true.
Sometimes we haven't changed as parents. And also the environment they're in is more challenging than the environment we grew up in. But they feel they can cope.
It's just, I think it's ingrained in teenagers that I guess once you start to get a little bit of independence, maybe you're going to a school with like bigger children and your parents are giving you a little freedom. And even in the clip, in the episode where they were discussing disciplining teenagers, they were talking about how as the child grows older, as they enter that teenage phase, as parents, you need to start loosening the reins. And I don't think parents like to hear this, because what do you mean? They're still under my roof. So how do you loosen those reins while still maintaining a level of respect? That means the way you discipline, the way you communicate is going to be different. And maybe what was it like in your case? How did you give a little freedom without them losing the fact that, mom and dad are still the authority in the house?
I remember two of my sons loved this game of rugby so much. And I was so terrified. I didn't quite like it. But I had given them, they could choose what they wanted to do. Perhaps I would have chosen other extracurricular activities for them than rugby. But and I tried to support them, go and watch this rugby while I'm screaming and looking the other way around, because I feel it's too dangerous. But I did that. And then I one particular incident I remember, and then I'm thinking it is also competing with their studies. At times they would have matches away from the school, and you're coming to visit, and that's the day they've gone for a match away. Or they have a match away from school, it is near to exams. I feel they should be concentrating on their studies to pass. Or other students are studying and they are going away to represent the school. It sort of used to disturb me, but I used to tell them, at the end of the term, we need to pass, we need to be promoted. So you need to balance, because even in the evenings, they could have practices, I think, the whole evening, and then they get too tired and drained out. And I remember one particular incident. One of our sons had been selected to be in the under-19 national team. So he had gone from the school team now to the national team. But it was a time he was about to do his senior 6 exams. And we asked him, so how are you going to go about this? You need to pass. And in fact, I came with do you plan also to repeat? So I think parents, we shouldn't go to the worst case scenario. But we also talked to his teacher, who was in charge of it all, and we told him our concerns. And he told us that, give the responsibility to him. Even if you tell him not to go, and then he feels he would have gone and still would have passed, he'll feel so bad.
That's true.
That you sort of inhibited his progress in this area. He was so much interested. So he told us, talk to him, telling him, okay, you're in a sensitive time. you have your exams coming up. You need to have this kind of grades to attain the course you want to do. And you have to read, you have to revise, you have to prepare. This makes you so tired. So then we told him, okay, at the end of the month, you are having some end of month exams. If you are able to score so much, then it means you are on top of your studies. Then I think it's okay.
Okay.
If you are not able to,
then maybe
I think we'll need to
revise
and put more time
with
the studies to prepare for the final exams, which were like 2 months away. So he thought it was a good deal.
Okay.
So we went on, and yes, the results come out. We go. He was the first to say, I think, Mommy, let me leave this rugby. Wow. I'll do it in the long vacation.
Okay.
He had taken the decision eventually. He couldn't say we made him to. He had the responsibility to decide. He had to make the results happen. It was up to him. Afterwards, I felt it was a very good win-win. It seemed like a longer way to make a decision. Instead of if I had come one day, no,
you can't play rugby.
And he can't understand. He feels you're not understanding. Other children are going. Other parents have agreed, and here you are. Here I am,
raining on my parents.
Yes, spoiling for him and his chances and so on. So the shortcuts, I think, sometimes we want to make as parents. At times are not the best way. Give time for the responsibility, the boundaries, and let him know, well, it was my fault. I couldn't make it.
I like that. I really like that compromise. And I think even as adults, you want to be given the freedom to make certain choices. So if you start practicing that a little with your teenagers, where you offer them what the responsibility looks like, and then find a middle ground. So if you're able to do A, B, C, D, E, and it makes sense, then you can make a decision whether you want to continue with rugby or continue with your studies. And if he makes that decision by himself, comes to that realization by himself, I think you're not just disciplining your teenager, you're raising an adult who in the long run is going to be able to weigh options. Just because my friends are going for this thing doesn't mean I should also go. How does it affect me as an individual? I really like that compromise. And so I think parents can learn a lot from conversations with your child. Ask questions,
Conversations, asking questions, listening, and not trying to be very reactive. And especially mothers, we are very reactive. You hear this? What? And I think that's the hardest part, to try and control your emotions as they are saying this weird thing, and your eyes are about to talk about it.
You can't hide the emotion on your face. But the truth is, you have to practice it.
You have to practice, and at times that's why you need a time out and say, okay, let's talk about it tomorrow.
To give yourself
because
time
then
to
you are
process.
in better control about of yourself. The other issue I found, which was very useful in parenting, is there's a friend of mine who told me, you need to talk and talk and talk. If you're not talking, somebody else is talking.
This is true.
And the one who is loudest
is the one they'll take.
The day.
Wow.
So the issue was to find out those challenging things in the environment, and in the holidays organize how we talk about them. There used to be the HIV/AIDS problem, early sex and its consequences. We're talking about drugs, we're talking about alcohol, these boy-girl relationships. Now, in the initial stages, I used to organize the talks myself, and then I realized I actually know little. They may even know more.
Then you
As
do.
they grew, you would give a topic, say this week we are discussing, say, HIV/AIDS, and allocate. Everyone had their point of view.
Get something,
I learned a lot from that approach, even what they know and what is happening out there. For example, they'll tell you of sweets or candies in the shops which have drugs. You know this candy? Yes. And next time I went to a supermarket and I watched out for it and I saw it. I said, all right.
Oh,
so then you also learn from them and what they think and the consequences of some of these things, of these choices. Yes, are their children doing it? What happens to them? What troubles do they go through? And those kind of talks. I realize when I look back, it's good to have these conversations early before they come into your home.
That's true.
Because they will come, sometimes they will, sometimes they won't. But one way of preventing them coming is talking about the dangers, the consequences, the boundaries they need to take. Yes, other children may be doing these things, but we are not the other children and so on, and trying to understand the pressures, the peer pressure, and how can we avoid that kind of peer pressure. Because at times we think our children are saints. But we are not in a very saintly world.
No, they're not. They're not
out there, and they can easily get into the peer pressure syndrome and wanting to belong, wanting to fit in. And prevention is better than cure, for real. So I'm hearing a lot of your contribution to the parenting journey. I'm sure their father was as involved, but it leads me to something I think that was mentioned again on this episode of Focus on the Family, where they were discussing disciplining your teenagers, how there's a difference between how fathers show up and how moms show up. And I think you alluded to it earlier, saying we carry the burden, I think, a bit more, maybe because of our nurturing side. So we are more reactive, we're more involved, you know, and yet it looks and appears like the fathers are aloof, like they don't care, which is not true, you know. And so I guess my question to you would be, how can both mom and dad show up as parents so that they have a united front in terms of disciplining, and so parents, children or teenagers don't feel like mommy is harder on me than daddy is, you know? It is true, parents, we all react differently. I think men don't get that strong attachment, or they feel, and especially like me who had boys, let them grow. Sometimes experience is the best teacher, and I feel experience could be some bad experience
very
could be avoided. We are nurturers, we are fussers, we fuss a lot.
We do.
But I've found that for parents to appear on the same page is very important.
True.
And the way I would advise parents to do it, discuss the values, the boundary lines, the no-go areas, the go areas, and so on, together, the two of you in your bedroom. And then, and even pray about it, pray for the children together. When you come before the child, be united. Sometimes one parent may be going overbound, don't show it. You will sort yourselves out later.
Privately.
Because teenagers are also very clever. Once they know one seems to be softer than the other, they will manipulate that. And once they manipulate that, they will play between the two of you. The other thing I remember my husband used to tell me, sometimes I'll be telling you, talk to your boys, do what? And said, no, but you need to learn to enforce. If we agreed and said this is a time they need to come, enforce it. Don't leave me to enforce it. Because then they'll say, Mommy is soft, she can't do it. It is only daddy. So you don't want them to play you knowing I can get away with Mommy, but with daddy no way. So we need to, the same rules, for both of us to apply the same rules that we have agreed to. And look united. Even if one looks like they've become too harsh now, you just die quietly. Just die quietly. I don't have to say, but I think you're a little bit too harsh, on that matter. But it's a conversation between the two of you. But I've also found a lot what is useful is talking to God the Father about these children, because you will never quite find a book which will tell you how to parent these teenagers. You might nearly find one for the infant children, but the teenagers you'll not quite find a book because of the different characters and personalities you deal with. but God knows his children.
He does.
So
He does.
talking to him about them,
Mm.
doing this is disturbing us, or I suspect something is going amiss, and so on.
Yeah.
I also found that as parents, and especially mothers, sometimes what causes us to go the extreme overboard, we think of the worst.
Yeah.
The worst is going to happen.
Yes,
If
yes.
it's in Garden City, what is he doing?
What
with
is
this?
he doing
Is he
there?
doing with something? Is he drinking? Is he
Yes,
doing what?
yes.
You know, our mind quickly goes
To the
to
worst.
the worst. I don't know how one could say, let's not always expect
The worst.
the worst.
Yes.
It could be just having, catching
cup
up
of
with
tea.
friends. It doesn't have to be doing the worst.
The
That has to be done out there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's part of, I think it's part of our makeup as women. Yeah, and as mothers, as nurturers. Did you have rules in your house for your teenagers? Were those rules vocal? Were they written somewhere?
Yes, we did have rules. We never quite wrote them down. I think in the earlier years, we used to have some things, writings would put up.
Yes.
But we would talk about them.
A lot. Okay.
In this family, but we had even a mission statement, our values as a family,
Yeah.
you know, the respect for one another, we speak the truth even when it hurts, and then the value for hard work and obedience, respecting even the workers who work for us in the home and how we talk to them, respect for one another, for each other's property. So we had those kind of values and rules, and every year, especially at the end of the year, beginning of the year, we would take off time as a family to go and talk about them. And how have we fared, and even talk through the year. What do you want to do? What do you want to achieve? Okay, how are you going to get there? I mean, if I want to get a 4 in the exams,
P7, you have to.
so it's not just going to fall from heaven.
That's
However
true.
much you pray,
Yes.
what are you going to do
About it.
if I'm going to pass my piano exams? Okay, great. So what are you going to do to achieve that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Initially, we could manage even like a quarterly review, but it became a little challenging when some go to secondary and different term systems. But at least half yearly and at the end of the year, where are we? But also as parents, we had commitments we are making, and they're also putting us to account. So it was not just us putting something to them, but even us as parents. What am I planning? How am I going to get there? And then you are giving an account. How are you going to get there? So then we'll talk about those boundary lines. Yes, at this age, you need to be back by 7 p.m. and so on and so forth.
Yes.
If you go, sometimes there was this coaching, you have to come back straight
home.
So you're calling at 1 p.m. Is so and so home? They need to be home by that time, and not stretch out into other things. If there is something else, we need to have discussed it.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so I guess what I'm hearing from you, number one, is that a lot of the rules that you enforced in your home were based on the values of the family. What are your values? Obviously, we are Christian. We emphasize respect. We emphasize valuing other people. You know, that's where the respect of like workers comes in. Obedience, you know, to authority. And then there was that communication and I guess unity as a family.
Yes. And contributing to the work at home,
yes,
especially in the holidays.
Yeah.
Initially, I would do a roster.
Okay.
When
they were much younger, or
when they were much younger.
Yes.
As I got older, perhaps an older brother would make the roster or something. But there was a roster for work which they needed to participate in and do.
Okay, that's really good. And then the other thing I got a sense of is that the rules were not necessarily written, but they were enforced through conversation.
Yes.
Yeah, which I think a lot of parents, those of you that are watching, can pick a leaf when they are younger. And this was emphasized in that episode on Focus on the Families. You can tell the children what to do, because at that point you are the law. Say, do this, don't do this, do this, and they will do it or not do it. There'll be a few cases here of disobedience, which you will discipline. But when they shift to the preteens and then into the teenage phase, there are certain rules that you have, which you have conversations about. One of the analogies I think that was talked about in this episode was the judge versus policeman analogy.
The judge versus
policeman.
Yes.
So for parents to take on more of that judge character, because policeman is what you did. You're so angry, you enforce the law, you know, and you do it in such a harsh way and enforce the punishment. Whereas with the judge, you know that you own the house, you own the resources in the house. And so even with discipline, I think the other thing that was emphasized, you know, when you're very angry, you can give very harsh discipline, and then you're not even able to enforce it. For example, you say you're grounded for a month, but now the month, there's so many programs coming up. Sometimes you might be like, you know what, you're ungrounded, let's go for this event. But when we come back,
they even have to go perhaps for tuition or something.
Yes. So I think something reasonable would be, maybe you're grounded for 3 days. I'm going to take away your phone for a week.
Take away and no television or something like that.
It has to be reasonable.
It has to be reasonable, but also consistency.
Yes.
Because sometimes we make these boundaries and we say, if this happens, this and these are the consequences. But then we don't follow through.
You don't follow through, yes.
Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Why they will start playing in between the lines? Or if you followed through with the other, you didn't follow through with the other child. But how come with so and so?
It's like this.
They could get away with it. And for me, I can't get away with it. So as parents, the consistency,
it's important,
and following through, and especially not to look like one is favored over the other. But again, as I said, some children are so much easier.
That's true.
You agree, you talk, and that's it. And if there's a problem, they'll call you to communicate this and the other. The other leaves you guessing. And we don't normally guess that. the easy route, yes. So some children are easy at, even if they cross a boundary, but they inform you, know, we've had a challenge, this and the other and the other. So you'll understand it and take it without even thinking any weird.
That's true.
And then another one, immediately you know,
you're like, where is this one now? You know?
So I think the issue, I would say, looking backwards, consistency.
That's true.
On the boundaries, consistency on the rules you set, and following through. If you said work has to be done by this time,
let it be done.
It being done,
and follow up.
The things, were they washed, or are they still in the sink, or somebody else had to pick it up? Why aren't you doing your part of the work?
Parenting is a full-time job.
Yes, it is.
It's a full-time job. How we juggle that and work and career and business,
that's a dilemma.
Nothing short of a miracle.
In fact, what I used to do, because I was a working mother, is I would divide out all my leave days. I had 28 working days, leave days. I would divide them out. In every holiday I had leave days.
So you had time at home,
so that there's some time off for me to be at home, observe, do things with the children, and then be able to know what's going on. But I found what makes it easier still in the teenage years and the formative 0 to 10 years. Because if you learn to do things together, some nice, interesting, exciting things together, the trust is being built.
That's true.
But if you have not been doing that, and then you are going to enforce all these rules and boundaries, you are breaking, trust becomes more difficult.
So as we bring this to a close, Auntie Priscilla, I want to ask one last question. There might be a parent who is watching now and they have completely failed to get along with their child. It's mostly fighting, it's bickering, they don't understand each other. What would you say to them to encourage them? Is it possible to even repair that sort of relationship? Do they need counseling? Where can they go to find support?
With God, I always say there's still room.
That's true.
And if you are all still alive. So the first place is prayer. I would say, talk about it to God and say, here, things have just failed. And then seek help. Sometimes we delay to seek help, or we are even embarrassed as a family. Your child is drinking, your child is doing all these kind of things, and you don't want to be embarrassed, and we are Christians. Seek help. You can go together, because even you as a parent, you're traumatized.
That's true.
By this child who doesn't seem to fall in line. And the child also feels traumatized by the way you're handling and reacting to a situation.
Yeah.
Sometimes whoever comes home, you're telling them about,
oh my gosh,
about all this.
I can see mothers doing
that. And she's listening.
Yes.
So they are also, they're not respected.
Yeah.
Sometimes they fall into problems because of the peer pressure. They didn't know, they thought they were in charge and they thought it was easy to get out, and then they can't get out. So I always would advise a parent, seek help. There is always remedy. It's not yet all lost.
That's true.
And let's not give up. And let's keep showing love and acceptance to this child.
Regardless.
God, our Father, accepts us with all our mistakes that we have done.
Yes.
Let's ask him to help us show love and acceptance to this child, regardless of the things they are doing that you do not like.
Yeah. And that's a battle that can only be won through prayer, of course, and support. Like we've mentioned, Grace Springs Family Network is here for you. If you need support on your parenting journey, please don't do it alone. Come and seek help and get the advice and support that you need to make your parenting journey a little smoother. Thank you so much, Auntie Priscilla. I think this was a wholesome conversation.
Thank you. Is that 40 minutes already?
More than 40 minutes. Whoa, thank you so much for joining us on this episode. This was a conversation on disciplining your teenage children, and I hope that this has been helpful in some shape or form. Leave us a comment. Let us know what has stood out for you and maybe what you're going to implement in your parenting journey. Grace Springs Family Network, redeeming a nation, one family at a time. If you need support, remember we offer all kinds of counseling. Take advantage of the contacts on your screen and reach out for the support that you need. Keep it Grace Springs Family Network.
If you need help with any personal or family issue, reach out to Grace Springs on 0779 206677 or WhatsApp on 0746 576 000.